Welcome back to Button Tree Book Club. We are continuing our discussion of the Lux series with book 4. This is book 4 out of 5. This is Origin. At the end of book 3, a lot had happened. So let's start there. At the end of book 3, we found out Blake is just a big old jerk. He stabs everybody in the back again, and also manages to steal the opal from Katie, because they broke into the government base to get out Beth and Blake's his Luxon friend that had healed him. They went there to get him and Beth, and Blake stabs them all in the back, and while everybody almost gets out, Katie does not. Oh, and then we had that whole, like, Simon was also turned into an explosive destructive hybrid who goes splat. So that was the end of him. And then we're in book 4. Katie is now in the hands of the DoD Daedalus. And Damon is not too far along in joining her because, as we all know, Damon won't do anything without Katie. Alright, this book was phenomenal. The pacing was strong. The characters are just getting so much better. What was different about this one is that for the first time in this series, it doesn't just stay with Katie's perspective. It bounces back and forth now, still first person, but it's first person for Katie and Damon, which I thought was actually really good, because this is the first time when they're in two very different scenarios for a good portion. And like, it lasts, I believe, yeah, it lasts even into the last book. This was sort of that introduction into the dual, what is the word? Perspectives. There we go. The two perspectives. So it starts off with Katie, but then it also goes back and forth. Katie, Damon, Katie. It goes back and forth the entire book, and I think that actually really benefits the series because there's a lot that we see from Damon's perspective and from his mindset that we never really saw before. Now, this is what I will say. This is the one thing. There's a pro and a con to this. The pro is they had such distinct voices. You always knew when you were reading Katie. You always knew when you were reading Damon. The only thing I can say against how they wrote Damon is it is such a cliche guy. Like, I think at least once, twice, 3 times per page, he's just like thinking about how hot and sexy Katie is. And we're like, okay, we get it. You're infatuated. You think she's beautiful. But, like, it was that guy ideal of sex on the brain all the time. And it kind of got annoying at points, just how often it would happen at certain sections. Now, it doesn't happen too much in the very beginning, but it's just the fact that he's always, like, thinking about, like, her beauty. And, like, again, it's not wrong. Like, I mean, maybe guys think like that. I don't know. I'm not a guy. So I don't know. But there were moments when I was like, okay, he had 2 modes, it felt like. I'm gonna punch somebody, or I wanna go kiss Katie. Like, he had, like, extreme anger or extreme lust. That is what it felt like a lot. And again, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It made his voice very distinct from Katie's, who is a very strong, very much, I'm gonna figure this out, I'm gonna get out of, like, it's very different. That's the best way I can put it. And again, like, she might make some comments of, oh yeah, Damon looks real good, or Damon is so thoughtful, but it's not a consistent, like, I'm thinking about Damon, thinking about Damon, thinking about Damon, Damon's looks, Damon's looks, Damon's looks. It's a lot less intense, and again, it just makes their voices more distinct, more masculine and feminine, in that just general way, that, like, how girls and guys think. Alright, so Katie is at Daedalus, Area 51. We have an Area 51. I guess it was just it had to happen. So she is there, and Damon then turns himself in so that he can join her, because that is his grand, brilliant scheme of getting her out. When he gets there, they learn about origins. Origins are actually really, really cool. Origins are the children of a male Luxon and a female hybrid. They create origins who are like this super powerful, like, perfect being. Like, they're super smart, super strong, super powerful, and a little bit crazy, I would say. And we find out that there have been lots of characters in the outside that they've already encountered that were potentially or possibly origins. It's just origins were such a small percentage, and they're so rare, and they're very, very well hidden, is the idea. And then we have, the most deserved part of this book is towards the beginning. Blake meets his end, and I don't think any of us are sorry about it. I guess we're sorry how it happens, because pretty much what happens is Blake just baits Katie into doing it. Now, I don't think he actually had the intention of dying. I don't think he wanted that to happen, but pretty much they're trying to train Katie, and they're trying to see like how strong and powerful and all that, and so they finally bring in Blake after bringing in lots of like destructive hybrids that may or may not self-destruct, or ones that are just they're not stable. That's a good way to put it. They're not stable hybrids. After bringing in countless of them, and she refuses to fight them because she doesn't want to fight like innocent people she doesn't know. They're like, okay, let's change our strategy. Let's put the person we know she'll fight in there, Blake, because Blake is a jerk. He stabbed them in the back not once but twice now. I'm sorry, but he had it coming. He's a jerk. Now, because I read some people's comments that they're like, oh, maybe Blake could have been redeemed. No, I mean, it would be an interesting concept if you could have a redeeming arc, but I think he pretty much met the end he was destined to have after 1, killing Adam, 2, then stabbing him on the back and getting Katie captured by Daedalus. So they put them in there, and like Katie at first she doesn't want to fight him, but then, you know, like he baits her and says lots of harsh things about like Adam and Damon and is mocking her, and she pretty much loses her mind. She loses her mind with anger and kills him. And she regrets it. Like, she doesn't just kill him and go like, you deserved it. And again, that's what's so great about Katie's character. I love Katie's character. She's brilliant. And she's strong. Even, like, she goes through all these horrible things, and there's gonna be repercussions. Like, she's gonna have some big emotions after all of this. Who wouldn't? Like, this is a traumatizing experience. But then Damon joins, and then they get out. Of course they get out. I thought they got out, like... I thought that whole point, their whole escape thing, seemed a little far-fetched. So what they do to get out is they release all of the origins that are on the base. 1, how? Like, how has no one done that before to escape? Because they make it sound like pretty much nobody ever escapes. Like, if you get out, it's because they let you out. So the whole fact that they were able to escape seemed a little far-fetched. That part was a little like, okay, it's a stretch, but I'll go with it. So then they get out, and then the best and worst part of the book. I'm gonna say that. This is the best part in terms of humor, but the worst part in terms of what it leads to. So the end of the book, after they've escaped, oh, I should mention this. I almost forgot. There's a new character brought in. He's an origin archer. He is cool. He is, so, like, that's one of the things, like, origins have been around for, apparently, generations. So, I think they said Archer was, like, a 2nd or 3rd generation. There's, like, 5 generations. So, he's about the age, he's about maybe a little older than Damon and Katie and that whole group. So, he's part of what gets them out. I think that's one reason that they are able to get out, because of Archer. And Archer can, like, oh, that's the other cool thing about origins. They can read minds. That would be really weird to have someone around and you're constantly having to guard what you're thinking so they don't know what you're thinking. But anyway, so they get out with Archer's help, and then they meet up with everybody, like Dee, Ash, Andrew, okay, I don't know how to say this. I want to say Luce, or because I don't want to say Lux, because that sounds so similar to Lux, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to say Luce. He's a little kid origin. He's also part of the reason they get out. So they meet up with this whole group, and then they're trying to escape because they know, obviously, like, DOD, Daedalus, is after them still. And because they're near Area 51, they're also near Las Vegas. So what do? They make a big old show in Las Vegas. That's the humorous part. That is the funny part. So they're trying to get out. DOD Daedalus pretty much, like, blockades the road. And so they get this grand idea of, okay, we can't escape. There's no other choice. We're gonna expose ourselves. We're gonna make a big old show in the middle of Las Vegas Strip. So they go all bright lights and powerful in the middle of Las Vegas. And it's hilarious because they're all just like, at first it's funny because they're all like jumping on top of cars and like glowing and like making like things happen. And it's funny because, and then it gets really horrible. So then the government is like, oh no, shut it down. No one can know they exist. But of course, like everyone's got their cameras out and there's a helicopter, and then it gets scary. It gets scary because then the government's like, nope, shut it down, and it blows the helicopter out of the sky. And that's when they go, oh boy, we've made a mistake. It turns into such a big problem. And it's also where we lose some characters. That is where Ash and Andrew die. And it's honestly really sad. It is, because like I think their characters were coming around. They were more okay with how everything was going, and they were becoming a good part of the team. But I also think knowing what happens at the end of this book, it had to happen because it would have made the last book a lot more complicated. Now, the one thing I will say is, could they have come up with another strategy to get out? Yes. The first thing I kept thinking of was, why didn't they just go into like one of these hotels or casinos or clubs and just like hide out like in teams of 2 until the government went by? Like get the cars off the road enough. Like they don't know what cars they're in. And then go hide. Like casinos are full of lights and colorful things and people being crazy. They easily could have hidden out for a couple days until the government cleared out, thinking that they slipped by. So I never understood why that wasn't the choice, but this is what happens. And ultimately, the very end of the book, and I'm going to spoil the end. Actually, I'm going to take a step back before I spoil the ending. So the big things that we learn in this book also are, one, well, yeah, I think it was in this book that it said. It may have been said in book 3, and I'm just forgetting. No, it couldn't have been book 3. It is in book 4. We find out Beth is pregnant. Which, learning that, you're like, oh boy, that means it's an origin. Which is, I think that's kind of the point. Beth is pregnant, and of course it's gonna be an origin. I mean, they don't have the child. We don't meet, like, she just found out she's pregnant in this book. Also, Damon and Katie get like a weird Las Vegas wedding right before all this goes down, because they're hiding out just outside of Las Vegas in this big like giant mansion, because, you know, they always seem to find these like giant gorgeous houses everywhere. I want to know how the Luxon have all this money all the time. It's just very strange. And again, they're like, oh, the government, but like, how do you have how is there just a random Luxon, I guess, a Luxon that just has a giant mansion next to Las Vegas? Yeah, again, believability. I mean, you take it for what it is in a story like this. So we have all those developments. So Katie and Damon are married, Beth is pregnant, and then the very end of the book. And I'm gonna tell you what happens at the very end of the book because it's such a... yeah. So what happens is, because of what happened in Las Vegas, and because of just everything that's been occurring, the entire Luxon community comes to Earth. And that's all we know. They come down to Earth, and they take Damon, Dawson, and Dee. We don't really know what's going on. All we know is they come down, and then they come to where they're hiding out, and Damon, Dawson, and Dee go with them. And there's that whole thing of, do they go willingly? Are they forced? We don't know. All we know is they are now gone, leaving Katie, Beth, Archer, and Luce, I don't know how you say his name, leaving them. And that's pretty much where it ends. It's such a dramatic cliffhanger. And you're like, what is happening? I mean, clearly, like, this is going to be the invasion that people kept, like, hinting at. Like, oh, someday the Luxon are going to take over the Earth. They're going to conquer the Earth and all that. And, well, here it is. Well, here's the setup. Overall, I gave this book probably 4.5 stars. Again, the only things that really take away are, like, it does get a little dark. It does get really intense just because, like, you're in a government base, they're experimenting on people, they're doing horrific things to people. It's a little intense at times. Also, I think, as much as I do love having Katie and Damon's perspective, it benefited the book. It was really good that they did that. I think it kind of got a bit much hearing about how much Damon was just, like, thinking about sex. And how beautiful Katie is. Like, that got to be a bit much at times, but pacing and dialogue were great. The plot was spot on. Like, it's developing all of these major plots we've known were coming around, and it sets up the final book, which will be coming out next week. We will be finishing with the final book, Opposition. I'm very excited. I've actually I've read both of these like back to back, so I've actually already finished it. So now I'm just prepping for that video. So next week, 1 week from now, Opposition, and then we will be continuing with the Nevermore trilogy next week also, finishing that up, and then we'll have our regular Saturday book clubs. So I will see you in the next one. If you are not subscribed to our channel, you totally should be. We have new book clubs every Saturday. We have midweek book clubs whenever I'm doing a series. And then we have lots of other stuff that's going to be coming out soon. Because, yeah, we have more gaming coming out. We're going to try to put up some DIY and craft projects soon. We're working on music. Music has been like this constant project we're working on. And we have so much for it, and yet we haven't figured out how we're going to utilize it yet. So hopefully that'll be coming soon, but who knows, because it's just been an interesting project. So, if you're not subscribed, you should be. Like our videos, and I will see you next time. Bye!